Good evening. How's everybody doing?
Happy Tuesday.
Yeah, we're waiting for Katrina to come on and join us. So hopefully she'll be here any minute. You know, a lot of people have issues with StreamYard initially. So I'm just waiting for the icon to pop up that she's there. And we'll start with Katrina. But in the meantime, we are New Jersey Paranormal. And I have my headphones on if I don't need them right now. I'm John. This is Chris. Like I said, Katrina and I have been messaging back and forth all day, so I expect her to be on any minute, but I wanted to start at 8 o'clock just in case, because we've had people kind of come on as, oh, speak of the devil.
There she is.
Put the headphones in. Great.
Hey guys.
How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. I was just talking about you not being here yet, so you're here, so that's good.
Yeah.
How are you?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Good. We got a lot to talk about because I introduced us to everyone before you came on. I don't know if you remember, but you were at the first time I met you, where we met you was you were at Penhurst, and this was many moons ago.
Yeah.
And it was like their party thing, and we were outside of this country club, and they were playing night golf. I don't know if you remember that.
Glow in the dark.
Yeah, I've never seen night golf before, so
That's very popular.
I was excited about that. But anyway, you sat out there for like an hour and a half, just kind of hanging and talking, and I got the impression, I'm like, well, she's really, really nice, you know.
Oh.
Yeah.
So then
lies, all lies.
Hold on, I'm actually reading
You're
from the
ruining her
script.
image.
The script is down here.
Image.
So,
You need to stop.
you know, we invited you to the expo, and you came a couple of years ago, and then you came last year, and we'll get to what happened with that whole thing.
Oh yeah.
Oh God, but yeah, we'll get to that. But
Yeah.
I like to start every interview and go through people's, you know, history and how they started in the field and, you know, everything. So we're going to start at the beginning. You're one of the few people that have been on multiple shows. It's usually like, you know, you have your Ghost Hunters, you have your Ghost Adventurers, but you've been on 3 different shows. So we're going to talk all about that. But talk about, I always like to start with beliefs. Like when you were younger, growing up, did you believe in spirits, the afterlife, the paranormal?
Yeah, 100%. Because very early on, I feel like I had experiences, but also I was exposed to it through storytelling via my mom's side of the family. My dad's side of the family is much more conservative, devoutly religious. My dad is more scientific. So, you know, where my mom's side is like very spiritual and I think open to that experience. So, you know, growing up, even though I had those experiences, I think I got a good dose of both perspectives. However, I certainly grew up with my own bias about it. So when I entered the field, I came in with that bias. And it was that, you know, spirits exist and this is what they are and nobody can tell me different. And I will fully admit there was like a cockiness about it, I think. But it very quickly changed once I started working in the field professionally and just having the experiences I was having that couldn't be explained, but also seeing how people's own personal belief systems color their perception of what they experience, that very quickly taught me to, well, sit down and learn, you know.
But it's funny you mentioned that, because that's why I mentioned it in the first place, because, you know, our beliefs come usually from our parents or, you know, our siblings or whatever we're growing up, and we're kind of taught whatever their beliefs were. Is there a heaven? Are there spirits? And then you get into the field and you actually start doing the real stuff and learning and meeting more people. And that's why I asked you, because sometimes people stay on that path and other times it totally
People evolve.
changes.
Yeah, people
Yeah.
evolve
Yeah.
with what they're doing.
So did you find that was the case with you as far as did you blindly believe that there was a heaven and the spirits and ghosts everywhere, and then
Entering the field, yeah, but once I entered it and started working in it, it very quickly became a 180 for me. And for me, I'm very transparent about that when I work with people. Obviously I don't make any guarantees about what we can find or what
Right.
we'll experience. And, especially with like client cases, I like to really break that down for them and explain that some people work through very specific lenses, and that's a specific belief system that they're working through, and we have to keep that in mind. So I mean, we do have to take into account people's belief systems, because that's the verbiage that they're going to use when they're talking to you about what they experienced and how they think things are manifesting or why they think things are happening. So that does play a role, but I think personally our jobs are partly to strip all of that away and to say, okay, is there something actually unexplainable happening here? And if so, what actually occurred?
I didn't even know you work on private cases. That's something I didn't know about you. You do.
Yeah. Yeah, we have
How-
a couple that we're kind of consulting to right now because they're far.
Okay.
So, you guys know this. I mean, we're completely self-funded, like YouTube channels, self-funded, all that stuff.
Yep.
So for us to get anywhere, it comes out of our own pockets.
Yep.
So, unfortunately there's some cases we would love to get to, but, it would take a lot of funding to make that happen. So, we keep in touch via email and see if we can assist any of those ways.
So do you work with a team? How many people are on your team? And
It's me and Heather, and
Okay.
then Jay from Travel the Dead. But Heather and I handle the paranormal side, and then we used to work a lot with when we first started, kind of privately behind the scenes outside of the shows. We worked with Josh Light from Paranormal State. And we obviously have our Rolodex of people we can call and consult if we need something like a more specialty.
and do you yourself and on every case work with a medium, or do you only use that as a resource? If you
It's
feel
a
like you need it?
resource.
Yeah.
Yeah, I view them as a tool like anything else. And again, that's also an explanation to anybody we work with of how we use mediums, why we use them. I personally do not like mediums to meet the clients, because I have found too often that once a client meets the medium, any of the work we do goes out the window. So
God, I love that you said that.
I know, right?
yeah.
You and I are 100% on the same wavelength.
Yeah, and I just don't think it's helpful in the long run. I think in some ways it depends on the client. There are
Right.
some clients that
Right.
are like they're really able to ground themselves and understand
Yep.
all the nuances in the field, and that I don't mind. But I think too often I find people are already married to what they think is happening, and so
I like her.
No, I love that she thinks the way she does, because we're
Yeah.
right on. We're simpatico because,
But that's
ahead.
but that's actually doing your due diligence.
Yeah, I think so. And I don't always think that stuff has been shown on the shows I've been on. A lot of things get cut out, and it's funny because especially on Paranormal State, like we worked with psychologists that we would bring in, and a lot of these conversations happened with the clients. They just didn't, editors or supervising producers, whatever, didn't think it fit the show. So a lot of that stuff got left out. But yeah, I think it's really important to be transparent with people, especially with clients, about what's happening.
And you bring up a really good point. And that's why I'm glad that we started here instead of starting with the shows. And we're
Yeah.
going to get to all that because there's the foundation with any paranormal researcher, investigator, or especially if you're going out to help people in the private sector. And that you worded it perfectly. It really is client based. That you're going in with your beliefs, but you're dealing with people who may think and feel totally different about things than you do. And we've dealt with people
You gotta
who
be open to
they
that.
specifically say, "I want a medium. I want a
Yeah.
medium." And in that case, yes, you have to come in with one just to do your due diligence and appease the client, because you mentioned a psychologist, and that's a great point because counseling is such a huge part of what we do, educating, counseling, and just
And how
sometimes it's
about
not
that she's
always
got a Rolodex?
paranormal, it's
Yeah.
something else going
That
on.
you don't go about saying, I do it all. I can do it
No.
all. No,
Oh,
I've
no,
got
no.
a Rolodex of
No way. I mean, we work adjacent in a lot of different fields. So it's like I can kind of do an intro 101 to certain things, but I'm not the historian. I'm not the psychologist. I'm not the electrician, like anything like that. So,
Do you ever get the feeling that, see, I wonder from someone with your background, and we're friends with John Zaffis and
oh
others,
yeah.
you wonder if, do you ever think people call you in just because you're you and they want to meet you and they want their own kind of show? Like, hey, I had Katrina in my house. She validated my haunting.
Yeah, what's funny with the personal cases, I maybe a long time ago, not anymore. Because the people that we're working with now don't necessarily want that notoriety. I get more nervous about the places that are businesses,
Yeah.
because my whole thing, I'm like, well, are you actually like doing your homework to see, did that person fake anything, or is that person telling the truth, or are you making things up that you're telling me just because you want more business at your place? Was anything
It could be one, it could be all.
it could be all of them.
Yeah.
So I think with the places that are businesses, my approach is not so much to like get to the bottom of what's happening,
Yeah.
what's truth and fiction, because I think that will take years with some of these places, if not forever.
Right.
I think it's my job at those places, I think, is more to document, get the story. What can we document? Can we back up any of the claims that they're talking about? Can we debunk any of the claims that they're talking about? While we're here, I think it's definitely has morphed into more of a role of documentarian at those places.
That's again perfect because you and I, again, same. When you go into one of those buildings, one of my biggest frustrations with a commercial building, or I don't know what else you want to call it, a business, is that they have that preset narrative that it's almost like a pamphlet. Here, this is who's here. These are the spirits that are here. This is what people have experienced. And some of these places you ask for documentation and they don't have it, but they
Yeah.
have the story of the woman who was found hanged in the bathroom, and the guy who was a serial killer who stayed in room 218. And you're just like, well, where's the proof of that? And
Right.
some of them say, well, mediums have been through, and mediums and
Right.
mediums. And I go, oh boy. Okay, well, I'm not saying your place isn't quote unquote haunted or active, but I don't think you needed all that stuff. I mean, we experienced stuff. Yeah, we didn't validate that, or that, but there is
But
something here.
We have had locations where
Oh, they've
things
been
have
stuff.
happened and we were able to document it and
Yeah,
back up,
Yeah,
even
of
though they
course.
didn't have the documentation for it.
Right. Yeah. And I think sometimes too, it's even if we can document the activity that seems to match a story,
Right.
doesn't
Yeah.
mean the story is real.
That's
It
true
just,
too.
there's so many nuances to it. But I also get nervous when it's a bunch of, you really have to break it down. Well, where did this story come from? Is this documented? Did a medium tell you this? Did somebody who came through here tell you this? And then it's also, because one of the frustrating challenges I think is not everything is going to be documented. Some things very purposely get swept under the rug.
Yeah.
Some things just were not documented. Some documentation is lost to time. Even some documentation, how they documented it isn't necessarily how we would document it today. So you kind of have to read between the lines. Um, but, there's places I've been where they're like, oh, yeah, like 12 murders happened here. And I'm like, well, where are you getting that from? And they're like, oh, well, people and like mediums. I'm like, if there were 12 murders in one place, I can guarantee you at least one of them would be documented. And that's kind of when my, BS meter starts to go, because I'm like, I'm pretty sure you're just trying to rack up some business at this point.
Have you ever found that if you've gone into some place regularly, or it, and you've been back a few times, that it changes like what you think might be happening? All of a sudden it got turned around and there's something else that you didn't expect?
Yeah, I think the best example I have of that is Red Boiling Springs, Tennessee, which is, oh wow, Thomas House. The name just escaped me for a minute. I've been there a couple times, and what's interesting is we were really the first group to go in there and investigate. I think they had some really small like ghost hunts, but this is like back in the day, like 2009, early 2009 we went, or early 2008 we went. I remember it was Valentine's Day, one of those years, and it was for Paranormal State. And at the time, the ghost stories that were coming out of there and what they had experienced, I mean, they lived there full time. So, what they had experienced was very much benign, and what they believed to be a little girl named Sarah. And that could be documented back to, we tracked down one of the housekeepers, her daughter. She used to bring her daughter to work with her. And the daughter had an imaginary friend named Sarah.
Oh.
But she very much thought Sarah was real. I actually don't know if she thought she was imaginary. If I'm remembering correctly, she actually thought she was a real girl. But we were able to track down documentation that there was a little girl named Sarah who like died on the property.
I think Chip mentioned something about that.
Did he? Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he did.
Yeah.
It sounds familiar.
And it's interesting if you go back and watch the episode, because this woman is hearing about this for the first time on camera, and she's just like, you can see her mind just being like, wait, what? So, but then we quickly went back, like the year later, we had an event there, and it was really dark, like really, really negative. People were I was not with this group ghost hunting, but people that I trust were. And it was either, I think it was a salt shaker or a soda can got thrown at people.
What?
Yeah. And there were like multiple witnesses to this. And then I went to bed, and it's called like the presidential suite, and I heard growling in my ear twice. And I was alone, So, and you talk to the owners at that point, they don't even know what happened. They're like, something just flipped within like a year and a half, something like that. And the last time I was there with Portals to Hell and Jack, and very bizarre activity happening there, just like weird stuff, so.
You bring up a good point, because we talk about this a lot. When, in theory, again, take like Amityville, for example. Yeah. If Amityville was real, and there's, people talk about that all the time.
Yeah.
That one family experienced all that stuff, but anybody else who came in afterwards, really nothing happened. So part of your brain can go, was it a hoax? I don't know. But the other part of your brain says maybe that one family triggered whatever was there.
Yeah. And what's funny is we've actually, because, I worked with Lorraine for a long time, and we would, we're like kids, and we're like, tell us all your ghost stories, Lorraine. And we would like ask her to tell us all the scary stories she had. And when she would talk about Amityville to us, she would always say Amityville was like the perfect storm. It was the right place, the right family, the right time. And I think back to that, and I just think, again, it's kind of like, and Heather says it the best way ever. And so I'm going to steal Heather's quote, but she always says, we're putting parameters on something that doesn't have parameters.
Yeah.
So who are we to say that once a haunted house, always a haunted house?
That's the problem.
We don't know.
No. And the fact that, I mean, we've done this for a long time, and we do public events, and I'm going to do a little infomercial in between the interview here.
Oh, cool.
See what I did there?
Gotcha.
So Katrina will be with New Jersey Paranormal at the Sterling Hill Mine in Ogdenburg, New Jersey, August 2nd. In a few weeks, she's going to be there. There's like 4 or 5 tickets left for that.
Oh, okay.
Her first time at the mine. The mine is awesome. Over 300 people died in that mine. We've had a lot of activity there. So if you're interested in meeting Katrina, you'll meet and greet, Q&A, followed by a 4-hour ghost hunt, New Jersey Paranormal at yahoo.com. You have to spell out New Jersey Paranormal like the screen there at yahoo.com. But that brings me back to what we were talking about originally, is that I do believe doing events and going to different places all these years, that we talk all the time about different energy in different room, different people, spirits are people. They're going to react to people differently, just like people react to people differently. There can be someone from the time you were there the first time, from the time you were there the second time, who sort of quote unquote triggered somebody who may have been there.
Yeah.
Just kind of around, that wasn't really active, and all of a sudden, boom, now you're dealing with that person too. I mean, that's, in theory, that's entirely possible.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of possibilities. I mean, something I always question is, how do we know spirits are actually how we define them?
Right.
I guess my thing is, like, when I'm working, it's very much of, and what I explain to people, if we're going into a case where we're not just documenting, they actually kind of want answers. It's always the thing of, everything is speculation, conjecture.
Yep.
I'm basing things off of what we think this is right now, how we define things right now. And then, you take them through and but hey, here's a couple other possibilities that have been thrown out into the field. And maybe this is how it works. And here's the patterns that we've seen that might help you.
Right.
If so I think my biggest tip, if anybody is getting into the field or anything, is just really, really got to stay grounded and open-minded.
Yeah.
You do have to be open. And that's why, again, John Zaffis, I've known John for years, and John is a guy who's done it all and seen it all. And John is open to new methods, new technology, and just new ideas. He doesn't stay stuck in, I come from the old school and this is the way we did it. And I appreciate that, because I think you learn from everyone.
Yeah.
Even meeting you, if you and I were, again, if we go to the Sterling Hill Mine and you have a different theory or a different idea, you may hear that and go, God, you know what? I never really thought about it.
It's going to pick your brain, Katrina. Watch out.
It's another tool in your, but let's talk about, again, the client. I like the private cases because I know how they are and I know the way some of them go. First question I have for you is, do you believe that a living person can influence or force a spirit to leave a location?
I believe in the possibility of that. I think because we know our own energy can affect each other, so why couldn't it affect some other energy that's in the room? So I do believe that could be a possibility.
That's the first time I've heard that answer.
Well, I like that answer, because we've done several cases in which I'm not saying there wasn't anything paranormal going on there, because I don't live there. I'm not there every day, 24/7. So, but all the signs pointed to another kind of issue almost within an hour. Hearing about, again, one case in particular, it wasn't just spirits this person was seeing in their home. There were animals popping up when he was driving his car. He almost hit a child. And
oh my gosh.
He actually saw a bear in his kitchen and a lion on his bed. He wouldn't see, and this person had some other issues going on.
Okay.
And that's where the counseling comes in. But he really, really believed in mediums, and he wanted us to bring a medium. We did bring a medium, and she went throughout the whole house doing a cleansing and doing, energy stuff. And he really, really, he believed in 100%. He had his faith in that. And we did our diligence, did an investigation. We didn't really find anything, but
And you also got him to see a doctor.
we got him to see a
Oh,
doctor. We
wow,
talked to
great.
his girlfriend and put him on a path. And then a week or two later, he thanked us and said there wasn't really that much going on anymore. There wasn't
Oh,
hardly
great.
anything
You got
going
help.
on. But do I believe there was anything paranormal there? Probably not. But
Yeah.
it's all part of it.
But I think that's what gets missed when people start taking on clients, how responsible you have to be,
Yeah.
that it's not just about the spirits, it's about people and what they're dealing with. And you've got to know what you're dealing with, because you can make
Right.
it so much worse.
You can
for
make
that
it a lot
person.
worse. We've
Oh,
seen that
yeah.
too.
100%. And I love that you said that because, especially, so when I was on Paranormal State, some people know this, but I went through training to be a volunteer crisis counseling. So the first place I trained with, we dealt with like every type of crisis, that you could have. And it was, I'm trying to remember the hours. It was 360 hours of training,
Wow.
Wow.
I think. Plus then we had, oh gosh, more hours of shadowing. But it was a program made by psych grad students. So it was very comprehensive, and I'm so grateful for that experience. Then I moved on to another center that focused on sexual assault and rape, and you would get some intimate partner abuse through there as well. But the reason I started that, there were two reasons, but the one I'll share that really influenced me was we were working with clients at the time on Paranormal State, and I did all the interviews for the potential clients. And then I would also follow up with people that we had worked with. And some people, they didn't really want to keep in touch. They're like, you know what, thank you for everything, I'm good. Other people we really kept in touch with for a long time. One in particular client had told me during a follow-up they were not currently feeling this way, but there was a point where they felt homicidal and suicidal.
Wow.
And went into detail with me about that.
Ooh.
And I didn't know how to handle that,
Wow.
and I was, obviously like concerned about them and like, what do we do? And like, luckily we had therapists that we worked with that, we could refer them to. But it was really this moment of realization of like, well, like, you know what I mean? Like we're dealing with some like really heavy stuff.
Yeah, you could tip those scales in a bad way, and
right.
not be good.
Right. So I got my butt into that counseling center to do training, and so glad I did. And I also echo the same stuff you guys do when people are like, oh, how should I get started? And my whole thing is like, if you're going to work with actual clients, like you better be prepared.
Yeah.
Because, these are people's lives. It's not a game.
Yeah, you better have resources. We have a psych nurse on our team. We also
that's awesome.
have someone who's familiar with electrical and construction and heating,
Which has been very
so
helpful on so many levels.
And she's had experiences with dark hauntings, and I'm just the skeptic, really. I mean,
well, I
I
think people forget the trauma
into that.
side of this. Nobody ever talks about the trauma of dealing with a severe haunting, and it really traumatizes you. I had trauma. I was suicidal over it. So this is the one thing that the shows don't show you, that when those cameras stop, what happens after.
Right. Yeah. And we always fought that on Paranormal State. I think there's some later episodes that touch on it. Because again, we did all these follow-ups, and how they would originally end Paranormal State is, there'd be like a caption at the end of being like, the family is no longer experiencing a haunting.
Yeah.
And we were always like, why do you guys keep putting that in there? Like, that's not always the case. And they would, and it's not, I don't really think it was anything nefarious necessarily.
Right. No.
I think it was just sort of like a thing of like, well, yeah, aren't they good now? Yeah. Like, it's just sort of, we're like, no,
you
that's
didn't
not
just leave
like,
them like that, did you?
yeah. I'm like, that's not really how hauntings work, you guys.
Yeah.
But we would, I definitely found that among so many of our clients, the loneliness, the isolation that
Yeah.
came from it, the anxiety that came from it, like how nobody in their life believed them. We had clients where they were completely shunned from their communities because they went public about this,
Brutal.
you
Brutal.
know? Yeah. And I mean, thankfully it's a little different now, I think, but, um, definitely back then it was, I mean, I've had clergy hang up the phone on me because I was looking for help for clients,
Wow.
so it's,
I had the Catholic Church, unfortunately, where we went to tell me that I was the problem.
oh, well, that's
Well,
fun to hear.
I've told you that a few times.
So, I mean, it's just like
Jeez.
there's different traumas that come along that you have to be really responsible about. And look, and
Yeah.
I had very supportive parents, very
Oh,
supportive.
that's great.
The only thing is it didn't take away from the fact of having 3 sisters, and I was isolated because everyone was terrified to be in a room where I was.
Oh,
So
okay.
there is, even though you have support, there's that fear. And again, I'm 57, going to be 58. The time period I was going through that, you didn't have access and it wasn't openly
Mm-mm.
talked about like what it is
Yeah,
today.
mainstream.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure they probably, did they go the satanic route with you of like,
Oh
this is
yeah,
Satan
I was a bad
and-
egg.
That was our generation,
a bad
actually. They were
egg.
showing
It
those
was
films
just
at
like-
school, remember?
Yeah.
And so the trauma from the hauntings, and whatever it was, I say haunting, but it was something completely different for me. And the trauma from the church. Then my father, being a Roman Catholic, still thought out of the box and sought out a well-known person in the psychic worlds
Mm.
to try to get assistance in that direction. And she
Oh, wow.
traumatized me for the 3rd time by
Oh,
having me come
geez.
to our house, flipped over cards, jumped up, screamed, "Get out of my house." And I'm saying it nicely. And don't you ever come back.
Oh my God.
So boom, boom, boom.
How old were you when this was happening?
17. I
Oh
moved
my
out of my
gosh.
parents' house at 17 because they were being traumatized. I was traumatized, and I moved out on my own, and I dealt with it until about 25 when somebody of the cloth showed up at my door and said, "I've been sent to help you."
Whoa.
Yeah, it's a unique story. It's definitely, and I'm very, very grateful for this. I don't know where this person came from. I've never seen that person ever again. They just said it was me, myself, and I who actually could control it and fix it.
Yeah, I not to the same level at all. But so I'm not trying to compare it, but just we had worked on a case that was negative in nature. And I believe something followed me home because I was living in a townhouse at that point that had like nothing. Like I felt so comfortable in that place, like probably the one place I'd ever lived in where I felt completely comfortable. And after that case, I started noticing like little things were happening. And the kind of the crescendo of it was I was going to bed, I was awake. You know how you just sort of like snuggle into bed and you're like, okay, I'm going to unwind. I was alone and I heard breathing in my left ear, like heavy breathing. And as this was going on, it lasted like 2 to 4 months. I remember I asked the team and Lorraine, and the consensus was you just have to ignore it. Like you doing that is going to take away the power from
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And
Don't feed it.
yeah, so that was
Yeah.
the advice I had. And I was like, okay.
Well, that's one of the questions too, as far as the things you've experienced and you've been through. I was going to ask you about attachments and if you've
Yeah.
ever had them. I know I've had at least 2, but in my experience, I don't believe they can stay with you. I think they eventually go either back to wherever they came from or wherever spirits go. But I went through about a 3-week span of not being myself and angry and bad luck and just one thing after another. And
Yeah.
I'm not real religious. I was so desperate. I went to mass and the priest is like, "Hey, go into the confessional and I'll bless you." And I'm like, "And where is that located?" And I sit down. He's like, "Don't be nervous." He goes, "Just when I tell you to say amen." Got it. And that's exactly what we did. And then he did the cross on my hands and on my head. But that didn't work. And then I went for Reiki, which I don't really believe in.
Mhm.
And that kind of
It did.
worked. And
Oh,
I don't know if it
yeah.
was placebo or what.
So
but
why wasn't the church placebo?
I don't know.
That's funny.
John and I are totally opposite sides of the fence in our belief systems.
Well, I think that's good though, because you probably gain perspective then.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You
I'm,
know?
I'm right all the time.
I let you believe
What
it.
about what are your beliefs as far as, again, we touched on religion a little bit. Do you believe in demons?
You know, I think it's a label. And I think the reason why I've used them on the shows, a lot of times we're dealing with people who use that specific label.
Yes.
So it's easier just to talk in their language.
Yes.
The other thing is when I say demon, literally everyone will know what I'm talking about. So there's not a whole lot of explanation that needs to happen. But in general, I believe that, or at least there seems to be a pattern of something that can be intelligent, kind of all-knowing, negative, malevolent. I'm going to call it non-human, and then when we're looking at cultural and religious beliefs, every sect seems to have their own version of something like this.
Right.
So I do believe that there can be something negative.
Right.
A label's a label.
And that's the interesting part of it. Without getting too far down the religious rabbit hole.
Yeah.
You can't. It's hard to have one without the other. If you believe there is a God and you believe there is a heaven and you believe then why wouldn't there be the opposite of
The yin and
that?
yang.
Yeah.
If there is balance in the universe, but on the other hand, I don't believe in demons, but I do believe that Hitler or Charlie Manson, they would be really negative,
People? Oh, yeah.
evil spirits in the
Yeah.
afterlife. But something inhuman, not of the earth. I don't know. I have a hard time with
I
that.
believe from the
That-
experience
that's
I had
just me
growing up,
personally.
that they're, and that's another thing for me that's and John and I talk about this. I have a hard time computing when someone says I'm dealing with something. Let's use the word demon because people understand that I'm dealing with that. I'm conquering it and I'm chasing that away. That blows my mind. That concept is just like, we're mere mortals. We don't even understand. I don't get that concept. If you're dealing with something truly that dark and you think you can do that, or you're not dealing with what you think you're dealing with. That's for me.
Yeah, it's well, then there's what is evil though? It's like
Right.
evil
the
exists,
definition
like
for you?
what kind of John was talking about. Evil exists in people, and maybe that's the real evil we need to be afraid of. So, but I do believe that there seems to be something that can be negative in these locations.
Right.
So then what's the barometer for negative? I don't know.
But
Because
that can run the
any-
spectrum.
That's
That
just like
can
with
run the
good and bad,
spectrum
yeah.
based on what are the limits of depravity and just evil for a human being.
right.
They
right.
can be and do things that we would never dream of, the atrocities that a human could do, a person, because we're not wired that way. We're not
Right.
missing that chemical or empathy or sympathy, but
Some people just
that's
enjoy it.
in humans, obviously. Some
Oh,
have it,
yeah.
some don't. And
Oh,
spirits, I think it's the same way. They go on to the other side, and whatever your belief is, whether everyone goes to heaven or there's a judgment or some are earthbound, those energies can exist in different places at different times and be present. I believe that 100%,
Yeah. I always say it's actually like really depressing doing this work sometimes
Right.
because inevitably, like when you go in and hear a story, whether that's a private case or a commercial place, they are telling you like the worst
Yep.
stories you've ever heard. So
Yep.
I feel like I'm always inundated with like the worst of humanity, like what we're
Yeah.
capable of.
Yep.
And it honestly, like, it gets to you after a while.
It does. You really have to build. It's almost like I don't want to compare it because I would never diminish well like EMT does
Right.
because they deal with so much. But on a pseudo weird level, you have to compartmentalize your brain to where you're not
Absorbing it?
emotionally. Yeah, you're there for a purpose, and
Right.
counseling is part of that. But like you said, you're also trying to help them improve and disprove and do the best you can with what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
Speaking of, there are no evil spirits at the Sterling Hill Mine.
Oh,
In case you're
good.
wondering, the Sterling Hill Mine in Ogdenburg, New Jersey. Over 300 people died in that mine. Katrina will be there August 2nd. Meet and greet, followed by a 4-hour ghost hunt. The mine is awesome. We've experienced so much there.
Has Katrina ever been in a mine before?
Oh,
Yes, I have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have. In Ashland, or it was either Ashland or Mount Carmel, I can't remember, Pennsylvania. So people are probably familiar with Centralia. And on each side of Centralia, there's 2 towns that a lot of the people moved to, and it's Ashland and Mount Carmel. And we went into one of the mines to ghost hunt a little bit.
it's different. I mean,
Yeah.
the things that happen there, the things that I've experienced there, the EVPs that I've gotten,
Oh,
nothing is better than real time, real responses. As far as when you do what we do, seeing a full body apparition, wonderful. I've only seen 2 in my life, but question and answer, there's not much
Yeah.
better than that. That's intelligence. Somebody's there listening and answering, and you get that at the mine a lot.
that's cool.
Yeah. So New Jersey Paranormal at yahoo.com. You have to spell out New Jersey Paranormal. There's only like 4 or 5 spaces left, and it's going to be a great night. We've never been with Katrina at an event, so it'll be cool.
Oh, we can't wait.
hanging
Yeah,
out with
I'm
her.
excited.
Yeah, it's
And
gonna
I
be
love
a
New
fun
Jersey. New
night.
Jersey's so it's like one of my favorite states.
Who
I
wouldn't
know
love New
I'm not
Jersey?
supposed to like you because I'm from Philly, but I do like I do like you.
Well, I mean, we love New Jersey, but loving the Philly part, well, it takes a little getting used to. But anyway, let's talk about. I don't know how long you have, and if you have a heart out, then we'll go faster. But
Okay.
there's so much to cover. Paranormal State.
Hmm.
How did you come to be involved? Were they casting? Were you already friends? I mean, how did that whole thing come to be?
So I had met everybody 2 years before the show started because I had signed up for the club then, but I had just gotten to school, and at that time it was like I remember I got like a 3-week sinus infection.
Ooh.
I had sprained my ankle. My house got broken into, so it was just like boom, boom, boom. It was a lot, and I was a double major with a minor, and I had already had 2 other clubs. I was the radio club and the snowboarding club, which was, I mean, that's just drinking and going down a hill. So it's like, didn't take a whole lot of effort on that one, but the radio club was really intense. Because we had to pass like our FCC test and all that stuff.
Right.
So, so I was like, you know what, I will come back to this club in a little bit. I'm taking on too much right now. So I went back and they had training to be an investigator, and it was like a legit course. We had to read books, we had to write essay papers, we had to take tests, learn all about the paranormal, the history of the field, all that stuff. They had an over 50% dropout rate.
Wow.
You had a shadow, and then you do like your final exam, which I think was just a paper. Yeah,
Okay.
and I wrote mine on lizard people.
That's a choice.
And it is a choice. Yeah.
Wow.
And during that training, they were like, hey, we're doing this TV show thing. They had already shot the pilot. And they were basically like, anybody can come out for it. And so it's like an audition, but like, it's not like they're giving you like a script or anything like that. It's just sort of like you stood in front of a camera and they asked you a bunch of questions.
Right.
So I went to that because I was a performance major. So I was like, I don't really have any issues, being in front of a camera like that. And they asked me some questions. One I remember specifically, and I later found out this is what got them to hire me, was they had asked me how I would react if like things were going down and everybody was scared. And I said something along the lines of, well, I wouldn't like run out and scream because I'm sure the people living there would be scared and I wouldn't want to scare them further, you
Right.
know? And they were like, oh, you're like the only person who answered that question like that. So,
Now,
you know,
was the club, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
yeah,
was the club actively investigating or helping
yep,
people?
yep.
Okay.
The
Wow.
club was, and it like blew up when I think when people found out they were having a TV show. So it was
Right.
like 200 people showed up to the audition, or like, was it two? I think it was 200 people. I know it got whittled down to me, Heather, and then two other people. I think it
Right.
was like another girl and a guy, or possibly two guys. And I remember thinking, so Heather and I had met very early on in the club meetings, and like we became like instant friends. And I remember when they told me who was left, I was like, oh gosh, it's probably not going to be me and Heather because it's two girls and there's
Right.
no way they're going to take two girls. And lucky for us, they took two girls. So I was very, very happy with that because, you know, Heather and I are still best friends. And, you know, so that's how it happened. And then it really wasn't explained to us. A giant contract was put in front of our face.
Wow.
And was just sort of like, you need to sign this. And that's a whole other story. And then I remember Ryan called us to the front of the club room, me and Heather, and he was just like, okay, so I just want to let you guys know your background checks like cleared. So,
Surprise.
and we're like, okay, what does that mean? Like,
Wow.
and that's like all he said to us. And then it was like, here's your giant contract you have to sign your life away for. And, you know, we were like 20, we didn't know anything. So
Yeah, I was going to say, did you even have anybody look at it, or you were just like,
No.
cool, we're going to be on
No,
TV?
take it, sign it, move on.
whole trauma-filled story there.
Like, I don't know what I would do in that case. Like, at 20
Yeah.
years old, I would probably
Yeah.
be like, yeah, here
You'd
you
sign
go,
it.
done.
Most people do.
TV,
Well,
sure.
You spend your time in therapy talking about it. I can tell you that.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Wow.
But your overall experience with that show throughout its run, positive looking back or not so much?
Depends on what part we're talking about. I've made really like lifelong friends
Right.
Yeah.
from that situation. So that's a positive I can take away from it. Another positive is I learned a lot about production.
Okay.
Another positive is I learned a lot about the paranormal. And I do really think there were a lot of families we were able to help.
Right.
And it's also, I think, something that's nice is I'm still told by people that it helped them, you know, and that they had like, you know, it was the show that they used to watch with their mom or with their dad. It was like a special thing for
No, a
people.
lot of
So
people watch that
lot of
show. I
people.
mean, you
Yeah.
talk about that show. A lot of people remember
But
that show.
when you talk about, you know, the show and what you learned from it, is that also the catalyst that maybe turned you into the type of investigator and
yeah,
how you deal?
yeah, 1000%, because we were working with, I mean, real people. These were people that didn't necessarily want to be on TV.
Yeah.
And so it became really evident to me early on just how we choose to experience things in life, like how we allow our perception of the world change our experience. And that was such an eye opener for me great life lesson too, that I'm still trying to put into practice just in like, you know, my everyday, but it's also when it comes specifically to the paranormal, that was like such an aha moment of like, well, shit, I don't know anything.
Yeah.
Like I came in here thinking I knew stuff and like, I actually don't know what this is. And I don't want to be so like married to my belief systems that I
Right.
can't see outside of
Right.
it, you know, because that's not doing any of these people favors.
See, I like that. I like that
Yeah.
opinion a lot. I think everyone out there should have that opinion. If you're part of the paranormal in any way, shape, or form, especially if you're going into somebody's home, you really can't just put yourself in a box
You got to get outside yourself.
of your beliefs and just stay there and only think your way.
Yeah.
You got to get out there and meet people and make connections and get some resources and really, that's what, that's how you really learn and grow.
I think it's also how we legitimize the field. Like,
Right.
I think it's fine if you want to work through a really specific lens,
Right.
but I do think you have to be transparent about that and say like, hey, for example, I like using Lorraine as an example because most people know who she is and the type of work she did, but she was a religious demonologist.
Yeah.
So she worked through a very specific
Yes.
and strict
Yes.
lens.
Yes.
So, anything that happened would filter through that.
Yeah.
And I think as long as you're transparent about that,
Exactly.
and the people you're working with understand what that means, I don't think it's a problem. But I do think, like, to move the field forward, there kind of needs to be we are all starting from the same foundation, and we are all using the same terminology. We all understand all the different sects, and that's how I think we can move it forward. But so those were the positives of that experience. There were many negatives, but I'll save those for another day.
Okay. So, how many years between that and Paranormal Lockdown?
So we shot our last episode of Paranormal State early 2011.
Okay.
And then I shot Paranormal Lockdown last quarter of 2015.
Oh, not too long.
Not too long.
I thought there was a bigger gap there for some reason.
No.
I don't know why.
And I did a show in between that too. It was like specials. It was 2 specials, and did a little film in between behind the scenes, but also had I worked in marketing and was doing makeup and all that stuff. So there's a lot of things going on in between.
Were you actively looking to get back on another show? And
not necessarily another show. I mean, I just wanted to work in film and TV, really.
Okay.
So I was I worked behind the scenes on a film, and I enjoyed that for the most part. And worked on a couple other projects. It kind of goes into psychology of me, I guess, but Paranormal State did a number on many of us, is what I will say. So there was a need for breathing space after that experience.
I'm smelling a Netflix special.
I'm hearing
coming up.
recovery.
Netflix gets these behind the scenes Nickelodeon things.
Yeah.
I'm sensing.
But do you hear that? She's saying breathing space, but she's really saying recovery.
Well, I mean, you live and you learn. This is how it is.
Did we lose you?
I think she tapped out. I think we aggravated her.
She's coming back. It's hopefully.
Hold
we
on.
lost her?
Here she is.
There she is.
Just shut off.
You hung up on us. I think we started touching on a subject there. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess so.
Hold on, let me. Better. There we
you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we started touching on something, and Katrina just
I guess
someone
found
called
out of that.
yeah. No, not me. I don't know what happened.
No, but again, we were talking about, life is sometimes you live and you learn, and
but I
you
think
were
that's
young
what
at
made
20
you
years
who
old.
you are
I mean,
today too.
I mean, for sure. I think, most experiences do, especially if they're traumatic.
Right.
Absolutely. They shape you,
right.
For better or for worse.
Well,
You
sometimes
turned
you
out
have
to
to
be a
learn
very
fire is
kind
hot,
person, though.
so you don't stick your hand in it again, unfortunately.
I mean, yeah, you definitely learned that part.
Yeah.
But the other side of that too is that there are 2 choices that we have in life when we come to bad experiences. We can either be knowing that we didn't like what we dealt with. We can be kinder to others, knowing how we felt. And we don't want to transfer that onto someone else.
Yeah.
Or you can actually take that and turn that onto someone else and treat them the same way.
Yeah, this is where the priest would say amen. And I said, amen. Yep.
So,
I
Paranormal
agree.
Lockdown, better experience?
Yeah, for the most part,
Hold on, she's going to go off screen again.
I think it was for the most part, a good experience with the paranormal stuff. We had a lot of experiences on that show, and I still, Rob is still a very good friend of mine, and we talk a lot. And every now and again, we'll just start riffing on like, what do you think that actually was? Like, what do you think what do you think actually happened? Um, and I still don't have those answers. I mean, there's nights where I think about Paranormal Lockdown and I just I don't know. I don't know why that show in particular, we had so many experiences and like objective experiences. Um,
But that's a good thing, right? I mean,
yeah, I mean, that was also a big lesson for me, as far as like, what is this stuff and what isn't this stuff and what does this mean that this happened? And it got me to think, I think, more objectively for sure when it comes to actual experiences, where I think Paranormal State got me to think objectively about how we experience things, like how we
yeah,
talk about it, our
yeah,
personal beliefs. And
yeah.
then Lockdown like really was like, wait a minute. Okay. Like, what actually is this?
See, I like that though,
Mm-hmm.
because I mean, you should experience kind of both, you would think, because we do a lot of events and we do lectures beforehand about the equipment and just theories and things of that nature. And um, you really should think in terms of, like you said, you should question things. You
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't automatically, because somebody tells you that building across the street is haunted, you shouldn't go in there saying, oh yeah, that's haunted. Now I'm going to go in there and
But the bigger
everything is going
picture,
to make it
the
haunted. That
bigger
if you hear a creak,
picture,
if you hear whatever, you're going to be like, I've been in buildings where, and I hate this part of it. It's almost like that movie 1408,
Oh
where
yeah.
I've been in a building and they're like, hey, that room you're going to stay in tonight, the last people that just checked out, a full body apparition came from the bathroom, walked up to the bed and pulled the sheets. And
Yeah.
I'm in that room like Christmas morning, and I'm 5 years old, waiting for that
you
apparition with
wouldn't
my
go to
eye
sleep.
open. And it just doesn't
He
happen
stayed
all
up
the
the whole
time.
night and he was so frustrated when nothing happened. It was just like he wanted it so bad. But the bigger picture that I'm hearing that you're saying about this is that each experience you had, you didn't just stay like this. You grew. You
Yeah.
kept developing more and you kept expanding yourself more. I think that's
Yeah.
really important for people to get that message.
Yeah. I think, especially, I mean, this is a field where, I mean, we're blazing new trails,
Yeah.
so I think I do think there's some sort of responsibility to that, of how we talk about this and what we do with it. Um, it's also just a thing of like, I can never, I can tell you what I've experienced. I can tell you the patterns that exist. I can tell you the belief systems and the theories, but I can't actually tell you what this stuff is.
No,
I
Yeah.
don't know.
no. It's more questions than answers. You're never going to
Yeah.
get, it's like one of those flow charts. Okay,
Yeah.
here's the thing I
Yeah.
found, but it led to all this 2 levels of questions.
Yeah.
There's just no definitive. And that's what frustrates me. I'm going to get on a little bit of a tangent. Mediums. Chip Coffee's been on here a bunch of times. We know Chip. I know other mediums. And I often say to them, if I had those abilities, I literally would lock myself in a room with a notepad and a tape recorder and
Yeah.
reach out. Whatever spirits would come through, I'd
Mm.
want to know the whole shebang. Tell me what
Yeah.
happens
You're a
from the
little
minute I'm
obsessed.
gone to whatever the end thing is. And I
Yeah.
wouldn't stop until I got that. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Oh,
And
yeah.
why can't they? And I'm not putting any mediums down. I've worked with mediums that I think are legit, but I don't have that ability. So
Yeah.
my limit is based on what I've experienced and
If
what
they
I've
get
seen.
answers, why can't they continue? Why can't they strive to try to
Yeah,
get
why
those
is it
answers?
just a one-way conduit thing where they could get information, but they can't feed another question that gives them more?
I
That's
don't
weird to
know.
me.
Maybe it goes back to the whole, putting parameters on something that doesn't quite have them yet. I do really believe in ESP though, and I always look at it like an invisible internet that
Right.
certain people are just really like
Yep.
their dial up is there,
I believe it too. I
You
know, I do
know?
believe it. I do.
But like Edgar Casey, for example, like the work that Edgar Casey did is so fascinating to read about, especially the number of times that he appeared to be right with his work. And so it becomes this thing of like, how did you actually do this? You know, I find it fascinating.
Uh,
And I think I've worked with so many mediums that have really just knocked the
yeah,
skepticism
me
out of
too.
me when it
Me
comes
too.
to ESP,
Me too. I mean, it
you
really,
know?
because like you said, for every medium that you work with, that's like you described, there's so many others that kind of, it's like a copy of a copy of a copy, that filter kind of diluted a little bit because they're
Yeah.
not what the ones that are legit. So it kind of, it's a
That's in
weird thing.
every
But
walk of life and every profession and
Por-
everything that you
portals,
do.
Yeah.
Portals to Hell. How long between Paranormal Lockdown and that show?
They were piggybacked.
Were they one
So
after
Yeah,
the
that
other?
was cool.
When
yeah,
ended the other
yeah.
one?
Well, we didn't know exactly that lockdown was ending when I
Okay.
signed on to, so I signed on to Portals thinking I was just doing
In addition to,
an additional
right.
project, you know what I mean? So then it was like through that in the same period, kind of, we found out that lockdown wasn't going to move forward.
Okay, now I'm afraid to ask, was that a good experience?
Portals to Hell? No,
Yeah.
Portals to Hell. Portals to Hell was a lot of fun to work on. So I mean, we had especially our last season was like one of the most fun projects we had because like everybody on the team, oh my gosh, I get like so joyful when I think about it because everybody became like investigators on the production team. Everybody was so into it. And so it just really made like our jobs, me and Jack, like so much easier because we
Right.
all knew that like they were there for us. Like, they were there to help us figure out what was actually happening. And there was one episode and I don't know why they cut it out, but it was really incredible. It was a historical place. And one of our producers was just like really, really into this episode. And for years, one of the curators had been trying to find this information about like a specific grave site. And our producer found it. It was like in some obscure book that he found that had like nothing to do with like you wouldn't think to look in this book, and like he just through his research he like somehow found it.
Wow.
And we presented it to the curator on the last day and he was just like, oh my god. So I don't know why that was cut, but we had a really solid team.
So I asked this question a lot too because I've done a little tiny smidgen bit of it. The difference between you doing what you do privately, when you go, like you said, on private cases and help someone, as opposed to the TV version of that. Now, we've been on a couple of TV shows, and like you said, you had some involvement in theater and stuff. So being in front of the camera, I wasn't used to that. I was like Talladega Nights, like I didn't know what to do with my hands or anything. And here we were on Kindred Spirits, and it's unnatural for a person who's not used to that to have like
a camera right in your face.
And you're supposed to act like they're not
right
there. And we were hearing stuff in the building, and the guy's right there. And I'm like, did you hear that? And he's going, and we must have done that like 10 times. So like, how do is there a different approach to the TV version of
Yeah, I think that with any kind of filming, you just have to be aware that you have to explain like everything. So you have to explain what you're feeling right now. You have to explain what you're thinking right now. You have to explain why you're using a piece of equipment. Where like if I'm just doing a private case, I don't have to do that stuff for anybody but my team members. So I think, sometimes maybe that comes across on TV. Like I know we always get the thing of like, you're just saying what you feel, like nothing's happening. I'm like, well, that's part of the investigation. Like that's called tagging. Like we have to tag it. But also, like on television, we're trying to get you to understand like what it's like to be in that moment with us, you know? So I think it's just like being more cognizant of that. And it's also like, obviously, we have to make sure certain interviews are scheduled at certain times, and
Yeah.
we have to be cognizant of schedules. And does this person have to leave at a certain time? Okay, then we have to, you know, you have certain like red tape that you have to work around, I think, with television shows. And it's also, you can lose interviews that way because not everybody wants to be on camera. Certainly, I've experienced that lots of times. So, or like you can't say, like you have to leave certain things out because they don't want it public. So there's a lot of things like that.
A lot of
So,
challenges.
so
Yeah.
did your first holy crap, this is real moment come from your TV experience or personal experience as far as the paranormal, like the one that you remember that you always go back? Because I have my catalog in my head of like top 5.
Yeah.
Did that come from TV or did that come from personal?
Well, it wasn't shown on TV, but it was for the show, and it was on Paranormal State. And I mean, there might be others, but this is like the one that really stands out to me. Was we were at a case where we had gone back, and I'm trying to remember if this is the return or if this is the first time we went. I cannot remember if it was the first time or second time, but it was a twin house. They were renovating the other side to turn into a single house. They couldn't keep a contractor. Contractors would leave all their tools, which if anybody knows a contractor, that's like you don't do that. Like that's not something that happens. And so half of our team was on the other side, the unrenovated side of the twin. And then me, Elfie, and Heather were in one bedroom on the renovated side of the twin. And like allegedly, from what we were hearing through just like walkie chatter, the team on the unrenovated side was having so much stuff happen to them. And it was just like so boring on our side, like nothing was happening. And I remember I was sitting on the bed, my back was up against the wall. I was facing the doorway. There was a camera operator in the doorway filming us. And again, like nothing is happening. We are bored out of our skulls. I lean my head back because I'm like, this is like, honestly, I was just like, I'm bored and I want to go home. And when I lifted my head up, I saw a woman's arm from here to here, like right above the elbow, reach around the camera operator.
Oh, cool.
And my eyes were like, it's like that moment where you're like, your brain is trying to make sense of it. And it is like the strangest thing that happens in your brain where it's like, I know that's not supposed to be there, but I'm seeing this and holy shit. And then it just like dissipated. And I kept it to myself because I thought I was crazy. And even though I knew what I saw, I was like, I know I saw that. I was scared to say something. So the next night I'm on like walkie patrol. So essentially like when we did our investigations for Paranormal State, we would normally have somebody like outside of the building or just like keeping eyes on crew where everybody was.
Yeah, I like that. I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, or if there was like any outside noise happening, so we could be like, hey, that was like the neighbor or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's on outside duty with Elfie. And over the walkie, we hear Shaw just got touched. Shaw just got touched. And Shaw was our audio engineer on the show. And he was sitting in the stairwell of the unrenovated side, or I'm sorry, the renovated side where same stairwell where I saw this woman's arm. And we have him on camera reacting. But what he said happened, he said it felt like a woman's hand pressed down on his shoulder.
Wow.
And that matched up so much with what I saw that, and again, nobody knew of my experience. So to me, that was like such a confirmation of like, wow, like, okay, like something really did happen here.
Yeah.
You know, that house is really, it's still haunted. I just talked to the homeowner not too long ago. So
I like that because you know, we deal in a field of, for every investigator, there are debunkers out there, especially YouTube now and all this, you know, streaming platforms. And I know several debunkers, one that's pretty popular that everybody knows. And it's so hard to tell them that, no, I cannot show you
Mm-hmm.
what you saw, what I saw. I don't have it on film because it happened in an instant. But if you could somehow plug into my brain with AI or whatever, that memory's in there. That
Yeah.
vision is there. But no, it's actual documented proof. I don't have it. But it changed me because my experience, I saw a girl run upstairs and I knew there was nobody else in that building but us.
Right.
And she would have had to have gone through a metal door that was literally like a horror movie.
Oh,
And
wow.
boom. And she was just gone. We made eye contact. She went,
Ugh.
and then she ran. And I ran
love
after
that
her. And
when
she
they
was
like notice
gone.
you.
Oh, I'll never forget it as long as I live. But I have no proof of that other than to tell you what happened.
Well, you know, it's funny. So while I encourage debunking, because I think more of it needs to happen,
Of course.
there's also a limitation to it. So like the example I like to use, because in the early days, especially, we were asked this a lot in interviews, like with press and stuff. And the question was always, well, if ghosts are real, why haven't we caught it on camera yet? And my answer was always like, that's such a narrow view of like, you're limiting yourself because, right, we don't know what this is. So because we don't know what it is and we don't know the fields that make it up, we don't know how it manifests, we have to entertain the fact that we might not be using the right equipment.
Bingo.
You know, we might not have the right spectrums that we're looking at. We might not have the right frequencies that we're hearing. We don't, I mean, it could be manifesting in our heads. Like we just don't know, you know? And so every now and again, like a debunking channel will come up for me, and occasionally like I'll tune in just to kind of see, and some of them make good points, but others I'm like, oh, you just don't understand the field, my friend, you know?
Well, I was watching an interview one time and the guy described it perfectly. He was an MIT scientist and he really believes in the paranormal too. And he was saying exactly what you're saying right now. He's like, maybe as living human beings, we're not quite where we can understand the way it all works. And he said, picture giving an ant a cell phone and say, make a call. It could never happen because the ant isn't equipped. We may not be equipped, maybe not for a long time. Maybe AI helps that. Who knows?
But we're not supposed to.
Right now, no, we don't know. And Amy Allen was one who told me that when I met her and I talked to her a bunch of times. She would tell me, like, you don't know how long it takes the message from get to here to there and how long it takes for them to respond. And if you're reaching them at all. And it just, again, it all made sense. And that's why I know a lot of people like the equipment. I know what the equipment does. I know it very well. I've been using it a very long time. Yeah. I look at equipment in a certain way, but I also look at it, and this is my speech at the lecture, which is going to happen at the Mine August 2nd with Katrina, which tickets are still available. Certainly don't mind. I think of equipment as communication options, not just little twinkly lights and things that if we can narrow things down to basic, I touch this thing and this is how it works, and then you touch that, maybe that's the first point of contact. Then we go EVP, and then we try to initiate other things. But you have to give options, and I think it's part of it because, like you said, we don't know. There's no way of knowing.
You really don't know. And it's you know, things are limited and until we know, to be honest. And one of my favorite stories is I was at Dragon Con in 2016. And when you go to Dragon Con, they have all the speakers like share cars. So it's like, you know, when you get picked up from the airport, it's like they're picking up you and like 3 other people. Yeah. And I shared a car with it was some science fiction writer and his wife. And a lot of times I lie about what I do for work because it just like
you don't open that door.
We did that at a dinner from
Oh my
Township.
We
Yeah.
had to.
We're with the mayor, and we're with all like the businessmen in
Politicians and-
Woodbridge that are contributing to the charity fund.
Yeah.
And we do our convention. And
Yeah.
we're sitting with all these guys that are professionals and well off, and they're dressed to the nine. And
Yeah.
here we are, and we're sitting with them, and they're talking, and they go, "Oh, well, what do you two do?" And we're like, we volunteer for the mayor.
We do
Yeah.
charity work.
Right. And then nobody wants to talk to you because they don't want to have to give a donation.
No.
Oh,
So, right.
we knew that everybody would have gotten up from that table in a minute if we did. We're the ghost people.
Right. So like a lot of times I don't tell people because it just like you get cornered and it's like all night you're
Yeah.
hearing stories and I'm just like but I thought, you know what? I'm at Dragon Con. If there's a place I can be honest, this is the place I won't get judgment or I'm not going to get like, whatever. So I tell her and she was like, oh, like very like disgusted with me.
Yeah, conversation ended.
Right. So I said to her, I'm like, oh, you don't believe? And she's just like, no, I do not.
Oof.
And I was just like, so this was the question I asked her, and this is what turned our whole conversation around. I said, do you think we have it all figured out? And she like stopped, and it was like such a reflective pause. And she's like, well, no.
Right.
And I said, so that's the work I do.
Right.
And then I couldn't tell you what we talked about. I know we talked, but that's the portion of the conversation I remember. And I know it started this whole conversation of things.
Yeah.
So I think that's where like, I'm a believer that strange things happen.
Yep.
What it is, can't tell you.
No. And it is comparable in a way to like alien life.
Yeah.
Do we have a video of an alien like, Paul, like the movie Paul, like being on Earth and walking around and meeting people and whatever? No, there are like videos of fighter pilots and stuff seeing things, but to think, and people are more willing to accept the fact that, yet how could we be the only life form on this blue marble in the entire vastness of the galaxy? No, not possible. And why would we be the smartest ones? There's nobody smarter than us that have invented travel and all this other stuff, that figured out stuff that we haven't. Why couldn't that be different when you transition into whatever comes next?
Right. And it's
I mean?
video footage that we know of.
Right.
Asterisk.
Right. But it does, like you said, it does plant the what if seed.
Yeah.
Which is all you need, really, I think, to start that journey.
You go back to what you started with.
Yeah.
Open minds.
Right. And that's I go back to when I started the field, and I really describe it as being cocky, because it's like, how can you possibly think like all the bounds of the universe and how it works? Like scientists who study this stuff don't even know.
No.
So it's like I just think it's we just
even
we don't know, man.
Even the people who went there and came back, they tell similar stories. And even for me, I'm not going to keep you on forever, but my mom, when she was passing, she passed during COVID. But 6 months before that, my mom was 86 years old. She was in assisted living, and I would walk into her room and she would be having conversations with people. And I would walk in and she'd go, "You remember John?" And I'd sit down and I'd look at her and I'd smile. And she said, "So-and-so was here." And I knew that person was gone. And she would look at me and she'd go, "You don't believe me?" And I said, "Ma, if tell me you're talking to that person, yeah, I believe you." She goes, "No, you don't." I'm like, I believe you if that's what you're telling me." Again, my skeptic part of my brain was saying, this is the body's way of preparing you and shutting down for what is going to be the biggest trauma that you're going to go through. Your body shutting down, dying, just kind of protecting. But the other part of my brain was saying, the unknown aspect, maybe they do prepare you and start transitioning you that, hey, it's not so bad over there. There
You're
are
not
people
alone.
over there.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid. It's,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, like, there's something. I mean, it's also like, where do thoughts come from?
Right.
Do we even know that?
Exactly.
It's,
No.
it's, you know, there's so much in neurology that I think is exciting, and physics and quantum physics and everything that's exciting when it comes to our field. Um, so I think there's a lot to be explored, and I would hope to see more like official jobs open up in this field, you know?
That would be cool.
Yeah, I
If
think it
they,
would be really neat.
like I said, I think AI, as much as I think it's going to take over the world, and we are going to be a Terminator eventually, but I think AI can help with a lot of broader theories and ways to try to test those theories. And you know, you would think. But I want to mention a few things before we wrap this up. One thing is Katrina, and she did something that so few people would have done last year at the convention. She was there for Saturday and Sunday. This year we're only Saturday at the New Jersey Power Unity Expo. We're also the people that organize that as well. November 8th, another shameless plug. Katrina will be there.
Yeah.
But November, the first day of the convention, Katrina was there. Lots of people there to greet her. She had a car accident upon leaving, and I heard about it, and it traveled fast around the convention.
Yeah.
And of course, the first question was, "Oh my God, is she okay? Is she okay?" Well, the car is in bad shape. You know, she's okay, but I fully expected her not to be there the next day. I probably wouldn't have been there the next day. So we were kind of just getting prepared to just tell everyone, look, this is what happened. And lo and behold, the next morning, she's there
Much to our
at her
shock.
table. And I went over to her and I said, oh my God, don't feel like you have to be here, because contractually you're supposed to be here. You look what you've been through.
Yeah.
And she said to me, again, to her credit, I'm not making this up. She said, these people came here to meet me. I wanted to be here. And she did. She had another long line that entire day. She stayed the entire time. To her credit, I mean, wow. I was just like, wow. That's a dedicated, good person who not only honors her commitments, but realized there were people there to meet her. Yet I've been in car accidents. I know what the body feels like after. I couldn't imagine what you were, how you were feeling.
Well, luckily the adrenaline was still going. So it wasn't until like that night, the next morning, it started to really kick in. But yeah, I mean, you guys put on such a great event, and you know, I tell everybody, it's the most affordable event that you're going to get of that caliber. Like, it's one of the top. I mean, it's like you guys, Parapsychon, Pennhurst, used to be Michigan. I know they just stopped. They're no longer, but it was like those were like the four that you go to, you know, for sure, because they're the best.
Well,
so,
we have a great time doing it. And the fact that we're in a high school, people kind of look at it a certain way, but I mean, we try to still give you the big con experience. Yeah,
I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah,
I think it's cool. I mean, it's like very like Buffy vampire, you know.
First time I heard that. But,
I like it.
But Katrina, what else are you doing that people can find you? Like, are you doing YouTube stuff? Are you doing?
So we are Travel the Dead. Our season finale is coming up in August. And for those who aren't familiar, Travel the Dead is the show I do, investigative show I do with Heather Taddy. And then Jay Milton is on our production team, but he's also a paranormal investigator, but he has been in production for like 20 years. So definitely knows what he's doing. And those are the cases they invite us to come out. So we have like a list of like 100 locations, private and commercial, that have asked us to come and investigate. So you know, it's more like documentation, like, can we experience what they do? What do we capture? So that is on my YouTube channel, just at Katrina Weidman. And we also have a recap show called After the Dead, which for investigators out there will know a case is never over. So After the Dead is, you know, the follow-ups and what happens now and where's the case at today. And we're getting ready to film our second season of that, which will be out this fall, that you can capture. And we have some cool guests coming out for that one. And then I am joining Celebrity Help My House is Haunted, which is a UK show.
Nice.
So
Nice.
yeah, so we filmed that, and that comes out in the UK in November.
Oh, cool.
I'm not sure when it's coming out in the US, but normally there's a little bit of a lag.
Right.
And then I just filmed something called Paranormal Prison, which was really cool, at Incarceration, which is a music festival, heavy metal festival. We would peel off the artists, as we could get them in between their sets, and talk about ghosts and if they believed,
Oh,
and
cool.
then we would take them ghost hunting. So
That's cool.
I
That's
got
really
to,
cool.
I got to ghost hunt with like Chris Kale of like Five Finger Death Punch, and Acid Bath, and Kitty, and 3 Days Grace, and everything. So and it was like at one of the most haunted places in America. So that'll be out in the fall on Loudwire's YouTube.
Do you enjoy the creative freedom of doing
Yeah.
what you want to do as opposed to the structured
Yeah.
TV?
And it's not even like a nefarious thing. I think
Right.
that's like the thing that gets like jumbled up sometimes, where there's people in television, they're very, very good at their jobs.
Right.
And they, their job is to make a great TV show. My job is to do a great investigation. And if it works well together, we marry each other, and and we both do a great job doing what we do. But I think just inevitably, because of time, and also sometimes they're like the red tape that we talked about with locations, or
Yep.
like interviews, like
Yep.
you just can't show everything. So sometimes I think our investigations fall into a narrative
Yep.
that isn't necessarily fully representative of
Right.
what happened.
Right.
So what I like about YouTube is like we literally don't have to worry about any of that stuff. We still fall into the thing of like we might not be able to show everything that happened in
Right.
an interview just to protect certain things, or there's some red tape with that stuff. But it's nice because we're on our own schedule. We don't have to worry about that kind of stuff. Like it's a nice breathing space for us.
Well, again, before we wrap up, one more shameless plug. Katrina we're 2 weeks away from the August 2nd event at the Sterling Hill Mine in Ogdenburg, New Jersey, which was an active mine from the late 1600s all the way to 1986. They estimate over 300 people died in that mine. Awesome place to investigate the paranormal. Katrina's first time there. Again, you'll meet her. You get to take pictures. I'm sure she'll do a Q&A. And then we go around and we go in the mine and we go to all the buildings.
Yeah.
It'll be a great time. So New Jersey Paranormal, you have to spell out New Jersey Paranormal at yahoo.com. Katrina, thank you so much.
Thank
that.
you.
I really
appreciate it, guys. And the scariest part is August is 2 weeks away.
I know.
That's a big scary part.
I mean,
That just terrified me.
November. I mean, the expo is 3 months away. We're like, oh my God, how does that happen? Anyway.
One thing at a time.
My anxiety can't take it.
Well, take care of yourself, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Okay, sounds good, guys. Thanks so much.
Have a good
Take
night.
care.
All right, bye.
Oof.
There you go. I enjoyed that a lot.
Great interview.
I like her. I like the way she thinks. I like her opinions. I like her approach. It's so easy for me to talk to someone like that because we're so like-minded.
Morals, conscientious, very involved, very open.
It's about me or it's about her?
Very open. That is a fantastic group of characteristics to have to be an investigator.
Oh, definitely. You need all that.
And again, she was very open and honest about her growth and how she evolved into who she is. So again, to come be forthcoming and talk as comfortably as she did says an awful lot about her.
So again, come meet her in person, August 2nd, 2 weeks away, Sterling Hill Mine, Ogdenburg. If you haven't been there, it's awesome. The mine itself is pretty active. Tickets available, New Jersey Paranormal at yahoo.com. Just write Katrina event. There's only 5 spaces left for the meet and greet and the ghost hunt. If you don't know who we are, we're New Jersey Paranormal. We do events all throughout the year. Just follow us here on Facebook or on Instagram. We announce all of our events. We also do live investigations at a place called the Creeper Gallery, where we investigate haunted objects. We'll probably be doing that, I would say, Wednesday night live at 7:30-ish Eastern
And the
time.
other thing I do want to say, everything that we do, all of our events that we do, the expo, and even with the event with Katrina, all the monies do go towards.
Yeah, we're nonprofit.
We're nonprofit. All of the money goes towards the sites and STEM scholarship programs and stuff like that. So that's another thing that we won't put out there.
So thanks for watching, guys. Please follow us on our socials, and we'll see you probably Wednesday night from the Creeper Gallery, 7:30.
Have a good night. Be safe. Stay healthy. And please remember to be kind to each other. Good night.